Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So, going to go over two kayaks that are considered the heavyweights in the kayak fishing industry, and the two I'm talking about are Nucanoe's Unlimited and Bonafide's SS127. I'm going to compare both these models on customization, performance, stability, and finally I'm going to go over which one of these kayaks poses the best value for you personally and what you're wanting to use it for. So let's get right into it. Okay guys, so let's talk about customization. So customization is really where the rubber meets the road when you're talking about fishing kayaks. These two are the two most customizable kayaks in the entire fishing industry, in my opinion. But there are some differences there that may kind of sway you from one side or the other, depending on where you want to go and what you're wanting to do with your kayak. I'm going to start with the Unlimited. The Unlimited has gear track all over the place. So this is where you're going to mount accessories, mount your different setups. The gear track goes from bow to stern, and it's also the same railing that the seat system sets on. So what that allows you to do is allows you to change the mechanics of your kayak depending on what kind of water you're on. If you're on moving water, moving the seat further back, it brings the front of the boat up and allows that boat to turn a little quicker. If you're on calm, flat water, open water like lakes, moving it more toward the middle is going to give you a better straight line performance on your paddling. You know, if you have a lot of weight in the front or the back, it allows you to move that seat to accommodate for that as well. The star of the show with the Nucanoe Unlimited for customization is really going to be the flat transom. So the flat transom gives you a lot of different options. It gives you the options, in my opinion, for maybe a little bit more budget-friendly kayak trolling motor setup. Honda also makes a 2.5 horse outboard motor for this kayak specifically that mounts on the back, as well as the pedal drive system that Nucanoe sells, the pivot drive. The pivot drive, you have the pedal drive unit that sets up on the gear track in front of you. The actual prop unit will actually go off the back, off that flat transom, so it's a little bit more like a rudder and pedal drive prop in one, if you will. You have a lot more options to build incrementally, but just know that that is going to add to the budget for the kayak. You can do it over time, obviously, as long as the parts are available. It's a little bit more of an investment, if you will. Kind of brings me to the point about the SS127 is what you get out of the box. I feel like is a little bit better value. So you do have in-hull storage with the front hatch. That hatch opens up from the front and the back, which is really nice because it allows you to access gear inside the hull while you're out on the water. You also have the removable gear pod. Think about the Yak Attack cell block setup. This is a great place to mount your fish finder. You can mount your display on top of the box. You can put your battery and your wiring inside the pod, and underneath it's a perfect place to mount your transducer setup. This can be removed as well, so it's really nice to have it in one package. It allows you to remove it from the kayak, so if you got it on a trailer or in the back of a truck, and you're in an area where you don't really want to leave your expensive electronics out in the open, it gives you the option to take that out, put it in the cab of your vehicle, and then you don't have to worry about it. One big difference between these two kayaks is the foot pegs. You do have foot pegs on the SS127. You do not with the Nucanoe Unlimited. Nucanoe does sell foot pegs. It's going to be about a $40 investment just for the simple track-mounted foot pegs, but also they do sell foot steering that's going to be an additional investment through Nucanoe. The foot pegs on the SS127, they are dual purpose. So they're locking for foot bracing, for paddling, but a switch on the back, you switch it, and it's going to freely float those foot pegs along that railing. That's going to give you that foot steering capability, whether it's a motor on the rear end of the kayak or a rudder setup. It's not an additional accessory that you have to buy in order to get that capability. It comes straight out of the box with that. The SS127 also comes with a high-low seating, which is a big difference between the two kayaks. Now, I'm going to get into performance here in a bit, but it does make it a little bit easier in a performing kayak having that seat in the low position. And another feature I love the fact that you have the pull-out drawer underneath the seat. That is functional both in the high and the low position, but that gives you a really good place for tackle storage, for small item storage, maybe some additional gear under there that you don't normally have with other kayaks. The one thing that the SS127 does lack, in my opinion, is rod storage. Rod storage is a bit of a premium on fishing kayaks. You do have the flush mount rod holders on the Unlimited. You do not have the flush mount rod holders on the SS127. The only real rod storage you have is that pull-out drawer does have those divots to where you can run it along the deck. But when you're talking about a lake fishing kayak, you're really going to be using a Black Pack Pro or some kind of milk crate setup. Both of these kayaks will accommodate it, but without buying anything extra, you're going to get a little bit better rod storage with the Unlimited. The Unlimited's also got the little tip protectors that you can run them horizontally. So again, you don't have to have them sticking up to be snagged on, especially if you're got some low-hanging brush and some trees in the way there. Okay, everybody, so we're going to talk about paddling performance, and I'm only talking about paddling performance because I feel like the boat that paddles really well is going to motorize even better. And obviously, if you got a motor on a kayak, if there's a lot less resistance with that kayak, you're going to get a lot more speed. You're going to get a better performance when you're looking at motorizing it. So strictly from a paddling standpoint, there's things I like about both kayaks. The biggest difference between both of these is the Nucanoe Unlimited, the ability to trim the seat forward and backward almost the entire length of the kayak. That gives you two completely different handling kayaks at the different seating positions. So if you're on moving water, having that seat back all the way is going to allow that bow to come up. It's going to allow it to handle a little bit more loose. On the SS127, you do have some forward and reverse options, but they are a little bit limited. You do get a low and a high seat position as to where on the Unlimited, you are stuck in that high position. The lower position on the SS127 does give you a lot more feel of control over the kayak and a looser primary stability and a stiffer secondary, which allows you to lean that kayak a little bit more. Does allow you to turn it a little bit quicker, at least from my feel, but the lower seat position was money when you're talking about just paddling it around, not feeling like you're using only your arms and shoulders. The foot pegs really do help on that as well. So I do like the performance aspect of the SS127 on the water. Just talking about from paddling, the low seat position, the foot pegs, and just a little bit more of a narrow boat at 33.5 inches versus the 41-inch Unlimited. So let's talk about stability. Stability is a very, very tricky subject because what's stable for one person may not be stable to the other. And what I mean by that is your sea legs. How confident are you standing up on a kayak in the water? How much experience do you have? Are you consider yourself a novice standing up, or you can consider yourself maybe intermediate to advanced? That is going to make a big difference when considering both of these kayaks. So for the beginner, someone that's not used to doing it, maybe someone that doesn't have as much of a balance, the Nucanoe Unlimited is going to give you a little bit more of that comfort level, that better primary stability. If you've never stood up in a kayak before, it can be a little daunting because you're still going to get a little bit of that wiggle because you're on a kayak. The SS127 has a little bit of a looser primary stability, but me personally, I prefer that. So you're going to lean that kayak a little bit before it catches. And it's going to feel like you have another wall of resistance once you lean it over to a certain degree. So when you're standing, it allows you to shift your weight onto one side of your body and utilize that secondary stability when you're standing up and casting. Also, when you're paddling, having that lower seating position, again, is going to give you a little bit more comfort when you're paddling. Your stability on the Unlimited is made for that higher seat position so you don't feel top heavy. Both of them do really well, but they do certain aspects of stability better than the other. So it really depends on where you're at, where your comfort level is. If you stood up in kayaks before and don't have a problem, they're both going to be phenomenal for you. If you're not really comfortable in your water stability or your sea legs, if you will, the Unlimited may be a little bit more of an advantage for you standing up on that. But just know, both of these, you're going to get very comfortable the more you do it. On these two kayaks, I wouldn't make a buying decision solely off stability because both of these kayaks are pretty much maxing out on your stability. It may sway me personally a little bit more, the maneuverability on the SS127, but just know that both of them are going to handle fairly equally. I just personally like the ability to go lower on the seat with the 127. We're going to go over which one of these kayaks is the best value for you. So I've probably already answered that question with the previous sections, depending on what setup you're wanting to go with or how you're wanting to build it. Personally, I feel like the SS127 comes out of the box with a little bit more value, a little bit more bang for the buck. And again, I'm talking about the foot pegs that double as foot steering, in-hull storage, the front hatch, the pull-out drawer under the seat, and the seat that does have a high-low option. Keep in mind too, Bonafide boasts the highest seating position and that high position in the kayak market currently. With the Nucanoe Unlimited, the Unlimited was made for rigging. So you got gear track throughout, you can run tandem on it, you can run the bow mount motor, you can add additional features to it like the removable gear pod, retractable transducer mount. The transducer scupper underneath is a little longer, so it's going to accommodate your side scan, your longer transducer setups. The flat transom is kind of the kicker for me on the Unlimited. That allows you to get into some other options with propulsion. Nucanoe sells their own propulsion system, and also Honda actually makes a 2.5 horse outboard motor that you can use on this kayak specifically. So that, in addition to more budget-friendly trolling motor setups that'll just clip onto that flat transom, you're going to have a little bit more options, and maybe you don't want to spend a bunch of money on the Torqeedo or the XI3. The XI3 goes on both of these kayaks equally. It's really easy to do. You get the spot lock capability on both of these. It's really going to come down to the value is going to be what you want the kayak to do. So I feel like you get a little bit more of a paddling performance out of the SS127, although it's not going to be a night and day difference. And if you're wanting that bow mount trolling motor, you may like the comfort features on the SS127 a little bit more. Paddling from that higher seat position on the Unlimited does take some getting used to, but you will get used to it and you'll start to enjoy the wide open features that the Unlimited gives you. If you're kind of a sloppy fisherman, everything starts out organized, your gear usually ends up in front of you on the deck. The Unlimited's really nice because you don't have a lot of clutter on the deck and you've got a lot of room to do that. But anyways, guys, which one works for you? Which one did you ultimately go with? Or which one are you leaning toward? Let me know down in the comments. It can really help someone looking at one of these two kayaks, maybe help swing them in the direction that best suits them. And that's really what we're trying to do here. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching the video, and thank you so much for the support this year. And without further ado, we'll see you on the next one.